Good morning, everyone. We're just getting set up right now. Gonna be pulling our speakers up on the stage. So while we're waiting, if you could like, retweet, share with all your friends who are into the decentralized web and NFT domains that we're going to be talking on this space today. It's going to be a really fun one. We got a great lineup of guests today, so we'll love for everyone to tune in. So we'll be kicking this off in just a minute. Thank you very much.
Hello, Phil.
Hey, Sandy, how you doing
Oh, I
today?
am awesome. How about you guys? Everybody doing good?
Doing great. No better way to start off my day than with a partner space. So very excited.
Yeah, especially with brave. I want to be brave today. I want to be unstoppable and brave.
Definitely, that's going to be the theme of the day.
Yeah,
And
unstoppable and brave. And I see some of our whales on the call. Drumpkin, you are a machine. Thank you for joining us. Seaport, thank you for joining us. Brian, I know you're on from Brave, but we've got some of our whales on, which are those who have an obscene number of unstoppable domains. They're a huge supporter for us, and we get lots of great ideas. And they have been coming and attending lots of these. They were really super excited about the Brave announcement. They each did a decentralized web and Brave for the announcement. So thank you, Seaport. Thank you, Drumpkin, for joining on. Anybody else? Any other whales out there? If you are, give me a little heart or something so I can see you. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Hi, guys.
our whales are like the coolest whales of all.
well, it looks like we have all of our guest speakers up here, and the room is starting to fill up. And I'm sure a lot more people are going to join as we kick it off. But I would love to, kind of start this space and let everyone know what's going on today. So, if you have not been paying attention, Unstoppable Domains and Brave have been working on a really exciting partnership. And we just had a big announcement yesterday, and we have a whole bunch of fun stuff planned coming up over the next few weeks. So, we are really excited and very fortunate to have on with us today the co founder and CTO of Brave, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today on this space. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We are really excited to dig into, more questions behind this partnership, how you got into this space, and what's coming up next for Unstoppable and Brave. And on the Unstoppable side, we are joined by our SVP and Channel Chief, Sandy Carter. Sandy, how's it going so far today?
It is awesome since I'm on with Brian and Brave, going great, and of course you too, Phil.
Oh, thank you,
Can't
Sandy.
forget you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is a really cool space. I mean, there's been a lot of interest around this one, and I am really excited to kick this off. So, I always like to start off by learning a little bit more about our guests. So, I was wondering if you could both tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how you got into Web3. Why don't we start with our guest of honor, Brian, today?
Cool. Thanks. So yeah, I've been probably a coder for about 3 decades now, so that's quite a long time. So I'm on the older end now. I remember when I started, I used to feel like people would discriminate me because I was too young, and now it might be the opposite. So in 2015, I co-founded Brave. I worked at a lot of different companies before that, including probably the closest to Brave would be Mozilla Firefox. Um, we built Brave basically with the intent that users should own their own data, so it fit right into this Web3 model. The first prototype of it was based on Bitcoin, and since we block all the trackers, sometimes that inadvertently takes out people's revenue streams as well. So what we did for Brave was to build in a reward system as well, so that we could use cryptocurrencies to do micropayments to all these websites that you're visiting. So We went to an early hackathon in Youth Waterloo with Brave, and we integrated MetaMask into it. And it became pretty obvious that we wanted to make our own Brave wallet after that, just to create an even better Web3 experience and to give DApp access to all the users.
Yeah, I mean it's so cool to hear how a project as big as Brave got started. So thank you for sharing that. That's a lot of fun. Sandy, how about yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what drew you into the world of Web3?
Yeah, and Brian, that was a cool story. Thanks for sharing that. Now I know why Brave is so amazing. You've got such great experience doing that solid, scalable coding. Yeah, so maybe my story may not be as sexy as Brian's. I was working at Amazon Web Services, creating, the market for the cloud. So we were cloud before there was such a thing as cloud. And the last year, I was asked to look at some of the emerging technologies, especially in our regulated industry spaces. So that would be like financial services and healthcare, government, that sort of thing. And so a lot of our customers were using blockchain. And so I went down the rabbit hole. I'm nowhere near as technical as Brian, but I love technology. And so I started going down the rabbit hole, understanding all of these new tech like AR, VR, IoT, and blockchain. And so I saw these powerful use cases for supply chain, financial services, and then I started exploring Web3. Got hooked on it, got rugged, of course, as you have to, I think, coming into Web3, got rugged, lost some money, luckily, not too much money, but it actually made me really upset that what I consider myself a geek person, a geek girl, that I could get rugged. And so I wanted to really, figure out how I can make it better. Like, what could we do to make Web3 more usable, more scalable? Kind of like what Brian was talking about, right? Brave creating their own wallet because they saw, how much easier it could be if you do things in a different way. And so Matt G, our founder and CEO, came up to Seattle to see me where I was living, and the rest is history. I'm now unstoppable.
It's hard to even remember a time before Web3, huh? It just kind of takes over so quickly.
For sure, for sure. Like I was thinking the other day, how long have I been in this space? And I was thinking like, 4 or 5 years, but it hasn't even been a year that I've been, not working on it as a side project, but as the main gig. So I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. You fall in love with it and then you just can't even imagine going back.
Absolutely. You lose all sense of time, in the space for sure. So yeah, thanks for sharing how you got in. That's also a really fun story. So, going back to, Brian and why we're here today is really to talk about Brave. But for our listeners who might not be super familiar with it, I know you kind of talked about the early days of it a little bit, but what is Brave all about today?
Yeah, sure. So Brave started as a privacy browser, so it protects you both against trackers on the web. So as you browse the web, there's tons of databases that kind of get your information and store your information and third-party trackers. It gets rid of all of that, but it also gets rid of, for example, if you're using Chrome, Google itself is tracking everything you're doing, tracking your data, building a profile on you. So it gets rid of both those things completely. Outside of being a browser, more recently, we're also a search engine. So you can go to like search.brave.com and you can use a truly private search engine. It's got our own index. It's not just, for example, like DuckDuckGo is kind of like a skin on Bing. This is actually its own index. And then kind of like the third pillar, I guess, of what Brave is now that it's a cryptocurrency wallet, self-custody wallet. So that's got like multi-chain support for any EVM possible. You can use dApps right in the browser. No extensions required. Those dApps can be on Polygon, Ethereum, or any other EVM, or it can be on Solana. And then we have other tokens and coins as well, like for example, Filecoin support. So that's basically an overview of what Brave is.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I mean, each of those pillars in and of itself is a really complicated piece of technology. So it's, really awesome how you're, working on all those things. And it really makes sense on how everything kind of connects together, where you start figuring out one problem and then you see that there are, all these other things connected to it that, you need to solve for your community as well. So it's really cool to hear you're tackling all of those things. And when you think about NFT domains and decentralized browsers, it really sounds like a perfect match. But I was wondering, Sandy, if you could tell us, how did Brave and Unstoppable actually come together?
Yeah, so first of all, at Unstoppable, we look for leading products, and of course, Brave is a leading browser for all the things that Brian talked about. Um, the privacy, multi-chain, owning your own data is very important. It's part of our mission statement too, that ownership piece. And and it is a favorite among the Web3 crowd. I think everybody would agree that Brave is a great browser for Web3 because of the things that it stands for, and the way that it's built, as Brian and team have done. So Brave has really always been a strategic partner for us. We initially partnered with Brave, I think, and Brian, you may correct me, but I believe it was in May of 2021. And Brave added support for Unstoppable's .crypto TLD on Ethereum into the browser and into the wallet. And then that partnership just grew in terms of, what else could we do? Everybody wants utility from that domain. And, one of the main benefits of a domain is being able to build a great website, but not just a great website, a website that, protects your data, that's decentralized, that supports multi-chain, that doesn't let others grab your data. And so from there, we kicked up this partnership. I want to do a big call out to Pavel, who's been the account manager working with Brave very, very closely, as well as Win, who's been working with the Brave team. And I have to say, Brian, you guys have some magnificent product managers too. I posted about it. Questions came in, and before I could even jump on to answer, your product managers jumped on and started answering questions about not only how to use Brave and the website, but how to also use Unstoppable. So I thought that was pretty amazing. You can just see the depth of the partnership, from that level of support that's been out in the field as well. So that's how it started. Always a strategic partner, perfectly aligned with our mission, and just a browser that adds a lot of utility to the domains and to the space.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about working in the Web3 space, is seeing these sorts of partnerships that are true win-wins for both sides. Working at Unstoppable Domains, one of the first questions you always get is, how can I set up my website? Where can I set up my website? And it's awesome to say, you can go set it up on Brave. And, that's a big part of what our announcement was the other day, is an even deeper integration where now even up, a few million Unstoppable domains are supported on Brave. So really cool to see how that partnership has just been, really central to UD the whole time, and how much it's grown, and what's ahead for it. I think it's even bigger. So, we've touched on this a little bit, Brian, but if you had to kind of you know, explain the difference between a traditional browser and Brave, and maybe why people should switch over to Brave, what would you say to them?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we don't track you. In fact, we don't even store user data. So, I mean, our hands are tied from even being able to track you, because that's just how we build and design everything. Also, you can do ad blocking without an extension. You can visit dApps without an extension. Um, and that doesn't maybe sound that big on the surface, but when you look at things that Google has been pushing lately, like for example, Manifest v3 that really cripples extensions, being independent from that control is very important. And I think that that's probably the main benefit that Brave has, over an extension wallet, for example. Out of the box, we support things like IPFS, NFT, domain-based resolution, not just for your IPFS site, but also for all your cryptocurrency addresses that you might want to send to other people or receive. So if you want to, for example, receive Ethereum, it's a lot easier to say you can send it to brianbondy.crypto than to say you can send it to 0xCD, whatever, and rattle off 40 digits. But just out of the box, it works with dApps. You can just go to any dApp you want. And you don't need to install anything, and you can just start using it.
That's great. Um, Yeah, I mean, in a world where you hear this all the time, people say that privacy is dead. You know, everyone, we're being tracked on our phones, we're being tracked on the internet, our emails are probably being, scanned for targeting to, why is it so important to give people an option for a decentralized web? Is there a real demand out there still for people to kind of take back that privacy?
I mean, there's censorship reasons for sure. So whenever you're on a centralized platform, your speech can be taken away from you by that platform and that platform's views. But also just content exists out there on this new medium, and you want to be able to access it. So, like for example, using Brave, you can access it. If you install Chrome, you can access it out of the box. There's also like data preservation reasons. Like when things are on a centralized server, they tend to go away over time. But if it's decentralized and replicated across dozens or hundreds or thousands of machines, then that's not going to disappear as easily. And just users should own their own data, and just the whole Web3 ecosystem allows users to do that.
And I would completely agree with Brian. The introduction of blockchain, which is where I went down the rabbit hole, really allows practically any application to be decentralized. And for me, the logical next step is to decentralize websites. And why is that? It brings back the free and open internet. That's the internet I want to be a part of, is one that doesn't have censorship, as Brian just talked about. And I think that, as you're thinking about the power of decentralization, the privacy piece is really important. And, I just talked to someone who had their website taken down. They didn't know why it was taken down. It took them a while to get it reactivated. And so, those type of things are happening more and more frequently. And I think that by having a decentralized browser, it enables that website to be up there. You control it. You get to decide, the content, and it stays there. It's yours. You own the data. And for me, the big difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is that ownership. Like if you had to say one word that's different, it's ownership. Owning the data, owning your digital identity, owning your website. That for me is what's most important.
I totally agree. So it sounds like it's more than just a privacy concern. It's also just a usability, functionality, and then looking forward, this is just a better foundation for the internet. Giving people control, giving people power back over their data, over their presence online, just makes so much sense because we're spending more and more of our time online. So that's a bigger part of our life, and it's really becoming. I know Sandy, you're saying this all the time. Digital identity is a human right. It's becoming such a big part of our lives that we have to kind of take it back from the tech companies that we've given it away to in the past. So yeah, really interesting to hear both your thoughts on that. So looking at more of like the nuts and bolts of the decentralized web, Brian, is it more difficult to surf on the decentralized web? If I want to set up my own website, is it a more complicated process to host it over on IPFS, or are you kind of targeting like a similar user interface that we're used to on Web 2?
With Brave, you don't need to set up a local node at all. So like typically before Brave, what you would do is you'd like install Go IPFS node, and then you'd have to install IPFS companion as well, and then you could access an IPFS URL in that way. With Brave, just out of the box, you can just go to IPFS / and CID, and then you press enter and it loads it. Or IPNS / and enter your IPNS key or a decentralized domain such as .crypto or .dao or .x, etc. Um, and you don't need to make sure your content like you have to make sure your content stays propagated in IPFS. You can do that by pinning it to your local node. You can also use a service like IPFS Pinata as well. So I guess that's the only thing that you have to kind of make sure that whatever you put up there, it's going to stay there. With Brave, you can go to any URL you want, and you can actually pin it to your local node, which makes it then accessible to any other IPFS node as well. And that's without even using any other tools. It's just using built-in Brave.
Very cool. Um, if someone wants to kind of learn more about that, do you guys have any like documentation or any sort of like good links or community built stuff that you would point people towards?
Yeah, we have good like support documentation, but I don't know the URL offhand. But just search like Brave and IPFS, and you'll see those.
Awesome. So anyone who's looking to kind of build your own site, uh, search for it. Let us know how it goes, and I think it's something that you're definitely going to want to try out. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Definitely set up your own decentralized website. So, kind of speaking about that, Sandy, I know you're always experimenting with the latest Web3 technologies, whether it's building virtual headquarters in the metaverse or incorporating POAPs into live events. Have you tried launching any decentralized websites yet?
Of course, yeah. So, when we heard about this announcement, I wanted to do a personal website for myself, but then I also wanted to look at something, that was very significant as a decentralized website. So first I did sandy.nft. So if you go into the Brave browser and you type sandy.nft, you'll just see me experimenting with, a little bio, just a couple of things, just to kind of play with it and learn. And I guess I would say if I can do it, any of you guys can do it as well. Um, but then the one I'm most excited about, Phil, is we took Unstoppable Women of Web3. So if you guys don't know, we started a group on International Women's Day, March 8th, called Unstoppable Women of Web3 that's dedicated to educating women in the Web3 space so we can have a diverse and very inclusive industry that supports all ideas and is inclusive. And so we've had that site as a .com, unstoppablewow3.com. And so we wanted to do unstoppablewow3.x. And so today, if you go out in Brave, our Unstoppable Women of Web3 or Wow3.x is a website that runs in Brave. It is decentralized, and it was really fun doing it. If you want to go try it out, get the Brave browser. Um, I had someone yesterday ping me and said it doesn't work, and I said, "Well, what browser are you using?" They were using Chrome, of course. You have to have the Brave browser to run it, but if you try it out, unstoppablewow3.x, you'll see that website is up and running. We'd love feedback on it, and Brian, maybe you and your team can help me with search optimization on that new decentralized website because you talked about search being in there as well. And so we're really proud about that. I think that website is pretty amazing. We have tons of others too. Like we've got thought leaders like Tim Draper, who posted a point of view piece up there. So there's some really great ones, but those are the two that I experimented with. And if I just could add two, so we have a whale group, and I wanted the whales to also try creating their own websites. And we have 10 of our whales, of Unstoppable Whales, which means they own a certain number of domains. They also all tried out their websites too. They gave us some great feedback, how they could optimize, ask great questions that helped us to do the FAQs before we did the launch. So it was very, very helpful to have them get out there and do their own websites too. So go check out unstoppablewow3.x on your Brave browser.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And if I could just get, reactions from the audience, like drop some emojis if you have downloaded Brave browser, you've checked out some websites. If you haven't downloaded it, it's super easy to do. Go grab it and start exploring some of these decentralized websites. I mean, if you're in the Web3 space, it only makes sense to be on, a decentralized browser. Why not? So definitely go check it out and let us know.
I think that's a great point, Phil. One of the reasons we wanted Unstoppable Wow3.x because we are a group of women who are educating ourselves on Web3. And so, of course, we have to have a decentralized website. Great, great, great comment. What about the rest of you? I saw no emojis when Phil asked. What have anybody done it yet? Or are you all waiting to do it after this Twitter space?
I see a couple emojis out there, but yeah, I
Yeah?
definitely think
Okay,
that
good.
it should be a wave of them. So, I mean, it's super easy to do. So, I mean, if you're into Web3, like I can't really think of a reason not to. Um, and there's all sorts of other fun stuff connected to Brave browser, so it's totally worth it, and it only takes a second. So, speaking of fun things and Brave, what are some cool ways you're seeing people use their unstoppable domains on Brave? Is it only for businesses, or are you seeing? I know Sandy, you did one personally. Are you seeing a lot of personal use cases for it too? Maybe we could start with Brian.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a great way for people to learn like about the space in general. So, um, for example, if you do a poll, almost everyone that is not familiar with crypto will say, "I'd like to know more about it." Just it's a very easy use case to share that like set up your first unstoppable domain. You can get your first NFT there. I just love it when I see a dApp built on IPFS that's deployed on IPFS and it's accessible via a decentralized domain. It's just really cool to see. As for like a specific use case, Skiff is a really cool setup, and I know Unstoppable Domains, I believe, just did a partnership with them as well. But you can get like your Skiff encrypted mails through Web3 as well.
Yeah, that's really cool that you mentioned Skip because they've been in the back of my head for this talk too. Between Brave and Skiff, that's basically most of your online life has moved over to the decentralized web. So I mean, why not? Sandy, what are some other cool ways that you're seeing people use their unstoppable domains over there?
Yeah, I have a couple more. So Deadheads launched deadheads.nft, and they've created content for their community out there. Any deadheaders? I know I see Bennett out there, so I know we've got some deadheaders out there who will love that site. Um, I'm also a gamer, so we've got busysports.x that launched a whole website. They use .x, so busysports.x. It looks like .x is probably one of the more popular ones around gaming. So I thought that was super cool. Of course, I already talked about Unstoppable Wild3.x, which is really about education and a community. Our own Josh, 0xjosh.nft, created a Brave website for his crypto podcast. So that's up there right now. And then I'll just do one more because I could go on for days and days. But another platform that created a Brave website was Crypto Moonwalkers, and they use .x as well. So Crypto Moonwalkers.x, and they created a knowledge sharing platform. So Brian, I think that's pretty cool. I think we had over 60 websites launched on Brave using their unstoppable domain on the day we announced, which I thought was pretty incredible. I see Luke cheering there too. So I love all the different examples from thought leadership to education to gaming to content that people have built on Brave. That should make you pretty proud, Brian, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear all that adoption. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I did a few conferences with Unstoppable, and literally 90% of the first questions I got was, how can I set up a website? Where can I set that up? So it's really a big demand for the NFT domains and just like such a natural use case. So it's really cool to see all the different ways that people are using it. But you know, you mentioned 60 new websites. There are over 2 million unstoppable domains registered that can resolve to Brave. So Sandy, how can we get all of the UD fam to get their website set up on Brave? Do we have any links where people can go to learn more, or things that people should be paying attention to? What's sort of the plan around that?
Yeah, and I would love Brian's insight here. For me, I think it all starts with education. I think that a lot of people want to get more engaged in Web3, but maybe they just don't know how to get started. So, jointly between Brave and Unstoppable, we featured some easy to use tools that you can use. So, like I said, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And we have some templates out there to help you launch your decentralized website. One of our partners, Palsy, who I used for our Unstoppable Wild 3, makes it easy as well for you to get started and get moving and grooving. And that education, I think, is really critical. I think it's a great time as well for any of you who haven't done this yet to really get started. And so, as such, Brave and Unstoppable are running a contest for the best decentralized website launched using a UD domain. Did you guys hear that? A contest. So you can learn more. You can download the Brave browser. And then if you visit changetheweb.x, that's changetheweb.x, and I'll try to pin that up at the very top too. If you visit that, you'll see all the details about it. And Brian and Luke, I don't think that we're eligible, but I would encourage everybody else out there to go and try to, get in and build that amazing website.
Was that some alpha you just dropped there, Sandy? I'm trying to think if we've shared that information anywhere else yet.
Ooh, maybe, but I know it's coming. So there you go. You heard it first here. So I'm going to tweet it too. So hopefully all of you guys will help us tweet it as well, tweet it out.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun competition. So anyone who's looking to get your own decentralized website going, you need a little more motivation. Here it is. We just want to see our UD fam really experience all the utility that they can get out of their unstoppable domains. And a big part of that is, planting your flag in the decentralized web. So start brainstorming some ideas, hop into our Discord, follow Brave for more information. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So kind of taking a step back and looking at the space more broadly. This one's, I would love to hear both of your, I would love to hear both of your thoughts around this one. What role do you see digital identity playing in Web3, and specifically, how does it connect to Brave?
Sure, I'll start. So passwords, how the system works now is that you share your password to the sites you want to log into with your username, which is usually your email. That's kind of all replaced with cryptographic keys now, and you don't need to transmit your secret to these websites anymore. You can just prove ownership of those credentials. Cryptographically verified credentials, I should say. And when you say like owning your own data, owning your own identity, like it's kind of a little bit abstract. Like, what does that really mean? I'll just tell like a quick story. I have a cousin whose Facebook account was stolen. They've been back and forth with Facebook for, I think, 3 or 4 months now. The worst part about it is they have a business as well, and they just have no response from Facebook no matter what they do. So their whole list of friends and contacts and their whole livelihood, because it's their business as well, is basically been phished to this attacker. Facebook won't do anything about it. With the decentralized identity, that would have never happened. They could have just logged in using their private key locally, never having to transmit that secret out, and never having to basically be at the mercy of Facebook.
That is absolutely wild. I mean, if you try and imagine like something similar happening in the real world, someone just kind of squats on your identity and, prevents you from doing business, that would never happen. But in the digital world, we've kind of given up those rights. So it's really interesting, to see people building new solutions to kind of take that back in the world of where we live digitally.
Yeah, and I would just jump in here too. I think what Brian said is right on. I think owning that data is really important. And I talk to a lot of people and they're like, well, is it really that important? I'll just give you a couple of factoids and maybe complement Brian's story too. So Facebook and Google alone, just those two, sold your data for $100 billion last year. $100 billion. So does it have value? Obviously, because people are buying it and spending a lot of money on it. And I told the story where, over the weekend, my husband and I were both from Texas. And so we were in California. We're going to go to a Texas party, and they asked everybody to dress up like Texans, right? And so we were chatting in the car about, should we bring out our cowboy boots? Should we wear a hat? So we got home, and of course, all over Facebook, I had ads for Roper cowboy boots and Stetson hats. And I tell that story and people kind of laugh and they're like, yeah, but is that really that important? But then I had a friend of mine and his son got diagnosed with a really serious illness. And so what did he do? He went up to Google and he started Googling to do research on his son's illness. Now, what he found was tons of ads coming in to get help for that illness. Now, that for me should have been very private. That should have been private information. So what I love about Brave is that they're not going to sell your information. They're not, as you heard from Brian, they're not storing your information. So that information wouldn't have been widely shared unless you decide you want to share it. And for me, Phil, that's the way it should be. I should decide as the owner of my data when I want to share it, how much I want to share, and who I want to share it with. It shouldn't be made by another company or entity or even country without my involvement. And so for me, that's why digital identity is so important. And the linkage between digital identity, which is your domain, and Brave just takes it one step further with being able now to have that decentralized website that I think is so very powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's always really wild when you hear stories like that of people talking about something or searching for something, and then it just kind of becomes what you see all over the web. And, you know, people are almost kind of too used to that. We're like, oh, of course Apple is listening. Of course they want to be able to target my ads better. But that's, not the way that it should be. And it's not the way that it has to be. And that's where I think Web3 has really kind of come in and flipped the script and given people the tools to kind of take control back of their data, uh, control their digital identity better, and capture some of the value that we've just been giving away to other businesses. So really cool to hear how Brave is pushing that forward, and also how Unstoppable Domains is playing a role in giving people control of their own digital identity. So looking at from a business standpoint, Brian, what would you say to other businesses thinking about working with Unstoppable Domains?
Yeah, as a business, you want to always be keeping up with the times. You don't want to become like a blockbuster, for example. So I would say just go reserve your domain on using Polygon. There's free gas, I believe, that Unstoppable is doing as well. So it used to be a little bit expensive when it was on Ethereum mainnet, but there's really no excuses anymore not to. And just as a business, just like the story that I gave with my cousin who was only on Facebook, you don't want to be at the mercy of a centralized company that doesn't really care about your business. You want to be in control of it yourself.
100%. It's, unless you're going for like a super premium name, it's really not expensive at all to get an Unstoppable domain. And like you mentioned, through our partnership with Polygon, we mint everything over there, and we cover the gas fees. There's no renewal fees. There's no hidden fees. I mean, it's really, really simple to do. So, I mean, if you're a business, step one is go reserve your domains. And then Sandy, after they've reserved their domains, like how should businesses be planning their Web3 presence on the Brave browser? Are any sort of different considerations than a Web2 presence, or can they basically use those same strategies over in Web3?
Yeah, at first I would just echo, as a business, you don't want to wait to get your website up. I don't know if you guys know this, but McDonald's was one of the last to have a website for the internet during the initial Web 2 era, and they paid very costly for that. So I would echo Brian's comment, like, don't wait. Go ahead and experiment, put up your decentralized website. That could be in addition to your primary DNS site today, kind of like what we did with Unstoppable WOW 3. We have our unstoppablewow3.com, and now we have our unstoppablewow3.x. So we can experiment with it. We're going to try some different things, just so that we learn and we stay in touch with the new technology. I was just reading an article from McKinsey, and they said that a lot of times it's not just technology that is adopted slower, but it's also all the governance and all the processes and everything that you use around it as well. So by having a decentralized website up as a business, you're not only learning about the technology, but you're also learning about how this new Web3 world works, what is protected, what's not. I think it's great to have a site that you control and that cannot be taken down. But I think the learnings that your organization will get will be invaluable as you move forward. And then you can be the leader, the disruptor in your space, not the follower or the laggard. I think Brian used, what did you use, Brian? Oh, blockbuster, right? I think you used blockbuster. Don't be the blockbuster in the space. I think that that's the right way to look at it. Look at it as a chance to learn, to get your site up there, to experiment, not just about the technology again, but about the whole culture that goes along with Web3, the community, the privacy aspects as well. I think that would be very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's some great advice. It doesn't have to be like a full on switch for the business, but it's the time to start experimenting, start connecting with this new space so you can really be on the forefront of it as it continues to grow. So, this one I think is for both of you. If you could, looking ahead, if you could snap your fingers and have any new feature from Unstoppable Domains, Brian, or if you could open up your Brave browser and see something new parked there on the homepage, Sandy, what would both of you love to see come out of each other's companies? Maybe we could start with Brian.
Sure. So I want to mention one thing is just that because of this all being decentralized, it doesn't have to come from either Brave or Unstoppable. It can come from the people on this call as well, just as easily. So that's kind of the nice thing. It's not a closed system. If you want to add a feature to Facebook, that would never happen. But if you want to add a feature on this decentralized tech, it's open to everyone. But I would say probably just better widespread adoption would be great. Also, maybe something that Brave would fit nicely within Brave's mission is just a better way to search IPFS sites, and just having all the Unstoppable domains indexed and available easily on that search engine.
And that was going to be mine, is searching. Like, I would love, Brian, I would love to be able to have the same ability to search everything on my Web3 site. So for me, I would love to not have unstoppablewild3.com and to be able to just have it on Brave and be searchable from everywhere. I know that's not just a Brave thing. I think that's an industry thing. But if I could snap my fingers and have one thing, I think that would be pretty amazing. You think that's possible anytime soon, Brian, to have those decentralized sites being able to be searched more broadly?
Let's make it happen.
Okay, I'm with you. What can I do to help? Let me know, because for me, that's the only reason right now I'm going to keep my .com site up there, is because it is searchable. There are tags. There are ways for people to find us. Yeah, so if we could figure out something there, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is something we're talking about internally and looking into.
Okay, that's awesome. Anything you can share? We'll just keep it between us and the entire Twitter space.
Exactly. Yeah. It's still early, but we're definitely looking into it. Yeah.
Okay, that would be cool. Yeah, if you need any great ideas, we not only have ideas just from working with our own site, but we have all our great whales who are constantly giving us ideas, and then we're talking to 500-600 partners all the time. So we do have some great feedback too, if you guys are interested in that as well. So that would be my number one, Phil. If I could wish, that would be number one. And then number two, I think it's for the whole industry. It's not just for Brave, but I think usability. I had to just teach a class on digital identity, and I was walking people through how to get your domain, how to set up your wallet, how to get ETH into your wallet or use an exchange. And it's pretty hard. And I was doing this for a group of chief data officers who didn't want to be left behind. And it took like an hour and a half to walk through that. And part of it is just because there's so much unique terminology. I don't think the user interface is really built out to be widespread adopted. We're early, right? We're in the dial-up phase, but that would be the second thing that I would love to snap my fingers on and make it easier, faster, more consumable, more accessible to more people. Would you agree with that too, Brian?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I totally think we'll get there. And, I just loved hearing both of your responses and how aligned they were. That wasn't like a setup question or anything. But it's just really great to see, this is what a really in tune partnership looks like. We both have the same sort of long term goals of driving adoption, increasing usability, and when you have two partners lined up like that, it's a really powerful force. So definitely excited to see where this goes. And speaking of where this goes, looking ahead 10 years, I know it's basically a century in Web3 terms. But where do you think the decentralized web is going to be at in 10 years? Are we going to be, right up there with Web 2? Is Web 2 still going to be kind of leading? Or, how do you both see this playing out as we go forward?
Well, this may be optimistic for the pace they move at, but hopefully in 10 years we'll see support for this decentralized web that's available in Brave today and other browsers like Chrome, Safari, Firefox. um, I think that Web 2 and Web 3 are going to coexist. What I'd like to see in 10 years' time is the centralized aspects to the current Web 3 system being removed, such as, for example, most wallets just communicate with Infura. Some wallets you can configure it to go to a different RPC endpoint to communicate with the blockchain. But just having all of that, any centralized aspect basically being removed would be a great step in the future.
Ooh, I love that. I love that one, Brian, for sure. The other one that I would love to see, and you said 10 years, so that's like, wow, that's like so long. I would love to be able to see everything that today we do um, in person or, on paper move to a digital identity. And a couple of ones that I've talked about before that I really love would be university diplomas, certifications being placed on your inside of your digital identity. I've told a story a couple of times, but I love telling it because it's such a real example. I have a daughter and she wanted to take a computer animation class. So great, she's into STEM. And of course, I didn't offer it at her high school. So I took her over to the community college to do the class. Well, when she was done, I wanted the transcript so that I could get her credit when she goes to university. And so they asked me to fax them the request. And so, Phil, I know I've told you this, but like it took me a long time to find a fax machine to fax it over. And then they mailed me a paper document that now I have to save until I have to send it in for credit. And that to me is just an example of, in 10 years, if we're still doing that, I think we've got a big fail. Like we're an F society. I think that that entire piece of information could be placed in your digital identity so that you are able to just store it there, have it there, share it with whoever needs to see it, a university, hopefully later a company who's looking for a job. I think that would be great. And the other one I love to use, just because I was brainstorming with a group of healthcare startups, they want to place all that healthcare data on an NFT. And for me, that's very powerful because they told me 60% of misdiagnosis occurs because the doctor doesn't have all the information that he or she sees. And I just heard yesterday that 40% of medical facilities won't give your information about your health to you. They'll only give it to another medical facility. Now, I know that there's tons of HIPAA requirements. I know healthcare varies wildly by country. So I think this is a big one. This one really might take us 10 years, but I really would love to see that data stored inside of your digital identity. Again, I'm imagining an appliance that you have in your house that you store your digital identity on and it's protected and secure. I know it sounds bizarre, but when I said it the other day, somebody said to me, well, my great grandmother never thought that she would have a refrigerator in her house as an appliance. So you could imagine that one day it could be so easy that everybody has an appliance in their house to store their data. And I would love for healthcare. I mean, I think there needs to be such transformation in healthcare. I would love for Web3 to really come together and go after that healthcare area and help us really make some big changes. Those would be my hopes or dreams for the next 10 years.
And that appliance that you mentioned might come in the form of an actual node for like an Ethereum node, for example, or a Solana or a Polygon node.
Yeah, it could. That's right. It may not even be like what we imagine appliances today, right?
Yep.
And then if it's easy enough, I'm tech support for my dad. I'm sure many of you guys are tech support for your parents. I actually had to do tech support this morning for a mistake that he made. It has to be easy enough, whatever it is, whether it's a node or a physical appliance, for anybody to use it, including my dad. You think we could get there, Brian?
I think so.
You haven't met my dad yet, that's for sure. But I do, for me, those are some of the vision things that I see going out 10 years.
Very cool. I think those are all, really reasonable goals for the next 10 years. I definitely see Web 2 getting influenced by Web 3 more over time, and hopefully adopting some more of our best practices and sort of incorporating, more with Web 3. I can definitely see that happening. And then, Sandy, your points around, better organization of your data really makes sense. It's sort of like we jumped into the digital age without really having a good foundation for all that data. So instead of being able to kind of manage our own data and store it ourselves, it's spread out among all these different holders. And that's sort of just a symptom of how, the digital age sprung about. And now that we have these technologies like blockchain, ways to decentralize data and still give people control over it, it really opens up all these new possibilities. So I think, around healthcare and stuff, the technology is there to support it. It's really more on the regulation side. So I think that within the next 10 years, I know government moves slow, but hopefully that is long enough to see some progress there. Um, so I just have, one more uh, general question before I'm going to open up to the audience. So everyone in the audience, if you have any questions around decentralized web, unstoppable domains, start thinking about it. You're going to have an opportunity up here in just a second. But I'd love to wrap up with this one, and it's not one of my normal questions. Brave and Unstoppable are two of my favorite company names, and not just saying that because Sandy is on the line with me. I'd like to ask you both a question around that. So, Sandy, what is something that makes you brave? And Brian, what is something that makes you unstoppable?
Well, you guys know I love quotes. Quotes are one of my favorite things. And one of my favorite quotes comes from Nelson Mandela. And he says, bravery is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. So, bravery is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And so, what that says to me, and what makes me brave, is that I try things that scare me all the time. And as I do that, I think that's what makes me brave. It's not that I don't have a lack of fear when I try something new, but that I do it even though I am fearful. And I can think of things from, parachuting out of an airplane, which was on my bucket list, scared me to death. And I did not do it because I was fearful. I was brave enough to do it, even though I was fearful, to attack that. Even coming into the Web3 space, it's a little scary because everybody in Web3 has this terminology. I even remember my first tweets when I was full time in Web3. People were like, "Oh man, you sound so Web2ish." And learning all the new terms and phraseologies and custodial wallets, non-custodial wallets. What's a decentralized web? It was it can be scary. And what I tell people is, just be brave because you're afraid. Everybody's afraid of entering in and saying something wrong or having others believe that you don't know enough. And I would say you're not too late. Get started. Ask the questions that you think are dumb because everybody else is asking them. So be brave. You will still be fearful, but triumph over it as you move forward.
I love that. I always learn something new about you, Sandy, on these spaces. So, and you always have a great quote prepared. So, Brian, I probably should have asked you to go first, knowing how Sandy likes to
I
have
think
great
I think
quotes.
I think Brian has a quote too, right, Brian?
I do.
Oh, awesome.
No, no, I was just going to say that um, I do a lot of running. So I guess I strive to be unstoppable because, like the format that I do is called a backyard ultra, and basically you keep going until there's one person left. So my running it strives to be unstoppable, I guess.
Wow, that is one of the most intense competitions. I've never even heard of that before, but it definitely unstoppable is a mindset that you're going to have to compete in something like that.
Yeah, and I guess if you did want to quote though, a Steve Martin quote, I believe is perseverance is a great substitute for talent. So that's
Oh,
kind of
I
the
like
way that I
that
live.
one. Who said that?
Steve Martin.
Oh, Steve Martin. Ah, interesting. I do like that one. That's cool.
I love it.
I knew that Brian's going to have one. I could just tell from the way he was talking and his stories and everything. So thanks for coming through for me, Brian. Now I can get Phil afterwards, you know.
Cool. Well, thanks for prompting.
Oh, those were great answers and some great quotes. I'm not much of a runner, but I might have to look into that a little bit. Um, Anyone in the audience, any questions for our guests? So both really experienced people in the Web3 space. So if you want to, anything you want to learn about decentralized web unstoppable domains, now's your chance. I guess while we're waiting, um, I've been asking the questions the whole time. Sandy, Brian, do you guys have any questions for each other?
Yeah, I would love to ask Brian. Hey, Brian, what was the hardest thing? You're the CTO and co-founder for Brave. What was the hardest thing about architecting the browser in a decentralized world? Was there something that was in particular a challenge that you guys really had to work to get through?
I guess originally we were based on Gecko, and we built the browser completely like that, and then we had to basically do a complete rewrite and rewrite it. It was after that it was called Muon, a framework based on Electron. After that, we completely rewrote it again on Chromium. So we just keep rewriting things, but I think we've got it right this time, the third time around. Um, but similar, also the wallet started with just like a fork of MetaMask, and we had to rewrite it as well. So just eventually you get there. You just sometimes it takes two or three iterations to get there.
Yeah, I think that's probably true of all the great products, right? You pivot and you pivot and you pivot. Same was true for Amazon Web Services. Same is true for us now. So, yeah, I think that's a really good one. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. Um, where would you like to see, like if Brave could add any feature to better support unstoppable domains? Is there anything that comes to mind to you?
Um, well, the search was my number one, the search engine, which we already talked about. I would say maybe the other one is embedded templates. We did use Palsy for some of those embedded templates and making it easier. I think that would be one of the things that I think you guys could maybe actually embed in the way that you construct a website.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
for me, a big theme is ease of use. I almost feel sometimes, Brian, I don't know if you feel the same way, that a big portion of my job is education because many of these things are difficult because they're new, but they're also difficult just because a lot of the user interface and those type of things haven't been built in yet. And so my mission right now is to do the education, but I'm hoping that one day it'll be so easy that I don't have to educate anymore. I'll just say, hey, go set up your decentralized website. And people are like, yep, click done. Or go get your domain with your wallet, click, yeah, done. That sort of thing. That's kind of, where I'd like to see it. In the meantime, though, I do feel like I do a lot of education. Do you feel like the same?
Probably not as much as you, but yeah, if I'm ever speaking about it, the state that we're in now definitely requires the the space that we're in now definitely requires me to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we did get a couple people who have questions, so we're going to try and see what we can squeeze in before we're out of time. But we have Aranyaka up here. How's it going? What would you like to ask the
Doing
panel?
good. Yeah. Thanks. Can you guys hear me right now? This is my first time like just speaking on Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that voice for a hamster, but you sound great.
Thank you. So I use Brave Wallet on the daily, and one of the things that I find a little bit frustrating is that I'm unable to type in an unstoppable domain into if I want to send or receive any sort of like crypto asset through the Brave Wallet. Is there like a workaround? Do I need to somehow get the unstoppable domain switched to Polygon to Ethereum? Like what? Like is there like a? I guess my question is like, is there going to be like a future uh, um, fix for this? Like because unstoppable domain is on Polygon, but I don't think Brave sees it quite yet.
Yeah, with this latest update, we do resolutions on Polygon as well now. So, for example, if you go to the wallet and you you want to send some tokens or Ethereum or ETH, I mean, you can type like Brad.crypto, for example, and then it does that resolution and it shows the address right there. So that's something that I've done before, but maybe the way that your particular one is set up, it might be missing a field or something like that, or I'd want to know the details. So if you can DM me though, I'd love to look into that. And if there's a bug there, I'll make sure it gets prioritized and fixed for you.
You know what? I just tried it right now. I think it's actually fixed. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's probably the more recent update that we just did. So it's good to hear.
Ooh, I love it. Thanks for raising that, though. I got a lot of questions on that too, so I think that was a great question.
Awesome, and I love it when the CTO of a big company like Brave is like, "Hey, DM me, I'll take care of that for you." I mean, that doesn't happen in the Web 2 world, right? That's such a Web 3 thing. I know we're basically at our time here, but I would love if Sandy and Brian, if you have any closing thoughts that you like to leave with the audience, or shameless plugs about exciting stuff coming up. Sandy, why don't we start with you, and then we'll let Brian wrap it up.
Let's see. So my closing thought is everyone should get your digital identity in the Web3 world. So make sure that you get your domain. And in fact, I think we should give hamster sticks in my head, but Aranyaka, we should get him a free domain. So Phil, if we could gift him with that as we leave, that would be awesome. Secondly, I think everybody should have a decentralized website, and what better time to do it than when we have a contest and you can win awards. So please make sure that you take a look at that and try it out. Don't be afraid. Try it out. Go and see if you can, create that website. Enter the contest. Maybe you'll win. You'll never know, and we will go from there. And then I would say the last thing is Web3 should be for all. So let's all work on making it more accessible, more usable, more yeah, I guess I would just say more inclusive for everybody. And last but not least, Brian and Brave team, thank you for your partnership and thank you for the focus on the decentralized web. We couldn't be happier than to partner with you and work with you. It's been just a real nice experience this year and last. So thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Sandy. So maybe I'll just leave it with some calls to action. Like, if you don't have Brave yet, download Brave. It's very easy to switch from another browser like Chrome that'll import everything for you. Twitter.com/Brave for the latest updates. Go out there and register an unstoppable domain if you haven't yet. It's a great way to learn about the space. Sandy already mentioned the contest, but maybe in the future, Brave and Unstoppable Domain can do some joint hackathons together. I think it'd be a great way to expand that adoption as well.
Ooh,
And
I
just,
love that
yeah,
idea.
thanks for having me on the call too.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. Hackathon sounds like a lot of fun. Brian and Sandy, really appreciate you hopping on this morning. And also thank you to everyone, Beauty Fam and the Brave Brigade who tuned in. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming out with this partnership over the next few weeks. So definitely stay tuned to our Twitter, follow Brave, download Brave, get an Unstoppable domain. It's going to be a lot of fun. I promise you it's worth it. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. And we're going to be back again next week with another fun talk with an Unstoppable Domains partner. So Everyone have a great day and have a great rest of the week and weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Thanks,
Cheers.
Brian. Thanks, Brave. Thanks, Phil. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.